I welcome you all to the free training series of ManageEngine Applications Manager. So this topic is split up into 4 parts, and this is the agenda for today. So the first part will be seeing on how to identify problematic elements in your application code. So here we'll be mainly focusing on how to identify the stack trace of your application, how to identify the slowest method calls, external calls, etc. Second part will be seeing on how to reduce debugging time in microservice environments with the help of distributed tracing. So here we'll be seeing more on the cross application tracing. Third part will be seeing on the code stack through thread profiling. So here we'll be seeing current methods used by the thread along with the CPU, the memory usage, the stack of the application code, etc. And in the last part, we will be seeing about the service map, like how applications are linked with the database or how applications are linked with another application. So all of these things we are going to see in today's agenda. So before getting into the topic, let's see why application performance monitoring. So as we all know, performance is at the heart of any application success. So these days, we users mainly rely on the web application to fulfill our everyday needs. We can also term it as a business success is directly proportional to the application performance. Now let's consider the following example. Many users are accessing a website. So when they're accessing a website, they are facing some issues like buffering of the website, or when they click on to any link, the page is getting slower, and also the links are taking more time to open. And because of all these problems, users will get frustrated, and because of getting frustrated, they will have a very bad impression on the website, and because of this they will give you a negative review on the website. As many negative reviews accumulate, customers who's visiting these website tend to decrease, and the developer who is very unsure about the issue, like what exactly is going wrong, if the issue is in the application end or if the issue is in the database end, why the customers are decreasing. So when the developers are unsure about the issue, and that is the reason to sort all these problems out, we have brought a module called APM Insight in Applications Manager, which will help in monitoring the depth of the issue so that the problem can be exactly identified, like where exactly the problem is going wrong. So these are the supported technologies in Applications Manager for application performance monitoring. They are Java, Node.js, .NET Core, Microsoft .NET, PHP, and Ruby on Rails. So now let's see the functioning of APM Insight. So first, you will be installing Applications Manager product in a server. So once Applications product is installed in a server, you will be asked to install an agent in your application server. So on which server your application is running, in that server, you will be installing an agent doing all the configurations. So once you install an agent, you will be asked to give the license key, the host, port, etc. You will also be asked to give an argument in the startup file of your application. So once these configurations are completed, immediately whatever transaction you perform on your application, the data will be sent to that APM agent, and that APM agent will send the data back to your Applications Manager UI using HTTP or HTTPS protocol. So here we'll be using a technology called as bytecode instrumentation to fetch the information from the APM agent to the application server. So this is how the functioning of APM Insight takes place. Now let's get into the topic, identifying problematic elements in your application code. So if you see, the main factors that's affecting the application performance is response time, the app code, memory, and the database, and also the web server. So normally the web server gets overloaded because of the user count, because of load balancer, etc. Response time. So any transactions are taking more time to perform, then obviously response time will get affected. App code. So if there is a buggy code, obviously there would be performance issues, slow DB calls, method calls, etc. And also because of the web service calls. Memory usage. Normally, when high load of transactions take place, out of memory occurs, or when users are accessing many web pages per second, obviously memory will get affected, and also due to high thread usage. And database, as we all know, the slow running queries, the DB calls, all this will affect the database performance. Let me quickly show how the agent will be installed, how the configuration will be done, and let me quickly take into the App Manager UI. So first, you will be asked to install an agent. So once you install an agent, that would be a zipped file. You need to unzip it. So once you unzip it, you will be able to see all of these files inside. You have to open the APM Insight.conf file. Once you open the APM Insight.conf file, you will be asked to provide the license key. So this license key would be in the UI of your app manager. Give the APM host and the port details and give your application name. You can give any name for your application. So once these details are given, you need to open the startup file of your application. So which file will invoke the startup process? That file you need to add an argument like this. Once you include an argument like this, you need to restart your application server for the first time. Once the restart is completed, you will start getting details like this. So we already have an APM Insight, which I've already installed. So here in this overview tab, you can see the AppDex score. AppDex score is the satisfied, tolerating, and frustrated percentage of the users. It varies from 0 to 1. 0 is frustrated, 1 is satisfied. You can see the response time of your application, the request throughput, the request count, error percentage, the data throughput. Scrolling down, you can see the response time broken by components. At this particular time, what was the response time and what was the component used. So that information you can see from here. You can also see the graphs for AppDex score, the request throughput, data throughput, the error, exception count, the HTTP error rate, and if there are any exception, that would be shown here on the screen. And in this overview tab, you can see the top 5 transactions and top 5 slow traces. So going to the next tab, you have a transaction tab where you can see all the transactions performed by the user. So each and every click you perform on the application, all those transactions will be recorded along with their AppDex score if they are satisfied, frustrated, or tolerating, along with the count, how many times the transactions are taking place, the error percentage, the average response time, the CPU response time, average in, the average out. In case your developer wants to know more information about one specific transaction, he has to just click on to the transaction where you will get more details on that specific transaction. So you can see the traces of that transaction along with the response time, CPU time, external calls, SQL times, etc. Scrolling down for that particular transaction, he can see the response time broken by components. Again, he can see the request throughput, the data throughput, the app server component split up, and the exceptions. Clicking on to the background tab, he can see all the transactions that's happening in the background along with the API calls. So if any API calls is happening in the background, those information can be seen from this background tab. Clicking on to the database tab, he can see all the queries that is getting executed in the background of your application. So when any transactions are taking place, there will be some queries that's running in the background. So all those queries will start getting recorded along with the count, how many times the query is getting executed, along with the error percentage, the response time, etc. So if you want to know more information about one specific query, he can just click on to that query where he will get these information. You can see the traces for that particular query, the database operation called by the caller, the response time, and the throughput. So these are the information that we do show in the database and the transaction tab. So let me quickly get into the next topic. Reducing debugging time in microservices environment with the help of distributed tracing. So we all know the name distributed tracing itself means that tracking transactions made from one application to the other. It is also called as cross application tracing. This will be very useful when the application is built on microservice architecture. So in a recent study, I have seen that 86% of the companies are using distributed tracing for their application architecture. If you see, the main advantage of distributed tracing is that it will help the teams to get the application issues faster before it affects the end users. Here, developers can discover the issue, identify the root cause, and address it before affecting any end users. So in Applications Manager, we discover, identify the issue, spot out exactly what is wrong, and accordingly, developers can go and fix the issue. Now let's consider the following example. So we have a Kubernetes cluster, and this Kubernetes cluster has different parts, and each part consists of multiple components like PHP, Java, and .NET. They are connected to a SQL database, and you will be installing an agent in one of the application. So once an agent is installed and once the configuration is done and transactions are performed, agent will collect the data, it will identify the issue, send it to App Manager UI. The developer can see from the App Manager UI what exactly is going wrong, and the issue will get fixed. So this is an example for distributed tracing. So this is how it would be shown in App Manager UI. You can see the distributed tracing. What are the transactions performed from one application to the another, along with the response time, their application name. So quickly, let me show from the App Manager UI. So here, I'm just clicking on to the the traces tab. So here we can see all the traces, the transactions along with their response time, the CPU time, external calls, exception count, SQL time, average response time, bytes in, bytes out, memory used, and the distributed call count. So in case you want to know more about one specific transaction, just click on to that particular transaction, where you can see more in detail about the trace details. So here in this trace details tab, you can find the transactions. So let me just go to the trace details. So here you can find the transactions made from one application to the other. For example, an application server is located in one IP and a database is located in another IP. We can get a collective information from this particular tab. Also in APM Insight, we can get a single page itself. You can view all the information of all the transactions that's performed in your application without the developers going to different resources to check different resources. Also in Applications Manager, you can identify the key, you can refine your key transaction. For example, you think these are the most important transactions and you wanted to monitor them. you can just select those transactions, give save transactions. So automatically you can monitor more in detail about that specific transaction. You have an option where you have the key refining of transactions. Also in the JVM tab, you can view the memory usage of your application, like how much memory is consumed by the application on your server, the CPU usage, the heap memory, non-heap memory, runtime, the JIT memory, JVM CPU usage, etc. You can also view the garbage collector and the threads information like this. So this is the garbage collector, and these are the threads information. And you have a separate tab here in the thread information. You can also see what is the collection time, what is the live, daemon, peak, sleeping threads, CPU time, and the user time. Also have a separate tab called exception tab, where you can see the top exceptions of your applications, like what are the top exceptions, what are the top error codes on your application, their count, along with the recent 5 exception traces. Also the error traces. You also have an option in a graph where you can see the transaction split by exception count, also by the error count. You have it in various graphs, the exception count and the error count. So all of these information can be viewed under the exception tab. Now let me quickly get into the presentation again. Identifying bottlenecks in code stack through thread profiling. So in APM Insight, we can easily find which stack trace is causing the application slowness. Also, we will be able to know which stack trace will be causing slowness, and this normally stack trace occurs when Java application throws an exception during the execution of a program. This will be very useful for the developers to identify where exactly the issue prevails. Also in Applications Manager, we do have thread profiling. As we all know, thread profiling is to analyze the code performance at deep level. It will identify and isolate bottlenecks in code stack. All of these, we have two types of thread profiling in Applications Manager, that is the scheduled profiling and on demand profiling. Scheduled profiling, APM Insight normally schedules thread profiling twice a day for a period of 5 minutes. On demand profiling, so we can initiate our thread profiling at the current time for a duration ranging from 5 to 10 minutes. Let me just show you from the App Manager UI. So if you see in the App Manager UI, when you just click on to the traces, select the transaction, you can see the slowest method calls, like what are the slowest method calls of your application, along with the count, the duration, and their percentage. External calls are nothing but the combination of your database and the HTTP call. So you can see there's a database call, the time, and the count, the failed count. Also in the SQL statements tab, you can see during that particular trace, what are the queries that has been executed in the background of your application, along with the execution time and the query start time. You can also see the remote external calls. Here you can see the PG SQL call. Also, if you scroll down, you will also be able to see the HTTP call. Clicking on to the exception tab, you can see all the exceptions happen in your application. In case if you want to know more information about that specific exception, which exact code is causing the slowness of your application, you can just click on to the view stack trace, where you will get the complete stack trace which is causing the application slowness. You also have other traces of the transaction like this. Also from the thread profile tab, you can see the collection time, the thread count, minimum max CPU time, the average CPU time. If you want to know about the current methods used in a thread, you can just click on to the collection time, where you can see the current methods used in a thread along with the thread ID, the CPU time, and the memory allocated. Also, you can generate this particular report in CSV, Excel, or the PDF format. So these are some of the options that we do have. Let's quickly get into the next topic. Visualizing dependency in your application architecture with automated service map. So what is a service map? A complete overview of the application infrastructure along with the connection to other dependent resources. To explain in detail, for example, your application is linked with another application. It is connected to another database. You can easily see in a service map where exactly the issue is. If the issue is in the application end or if the issue is in the database end. So these map will allow application connections, dependency, including applications, their databases, which hosts they are connected, etc. So the main purpose of service map is that you can quickly see the current health and operational state of your environment. You can also understand how application and services in your architecture connect and communicate. You can view the key metrics like response time, the throughput, status of connection, etc. We have three types of service map in Applications Manager. They are the map view, table view, and the graph view. So map view, it will provide us a way of analyzing the topological view of your application. So this is how the map view looks like. So you can see here, there is a Java application. It is connected to different components, and you can see where exactly the issue is from this service map itself. So everything which shows in red, which means that there is a issue, which is in green, it means that it is available and it is working fine. Let me show the service map in the App Manager UI itself. So this is a service map. So if you see here, this inner circle shows the instance and the application name. The outer circle shows the application, and these are connected to these components. And if in case if there are any failed request in any of these components, it would be shown in red. Red depicts that it is unavailable. Green is available. Purple, it means that that particular component is unmanaged, and pink means there is a scheduled maintenance. So if I just hover my mouse over here, I can see the response time, total failed request is 0. That is the reason it is available, and the total request made and the throughput. Similarly, you can see for each and every component like this. In case I want to know more information about this specific component, I can just click on to that particular component, which will take me to the graph view like this. The average response time, the request throughput, error count, and the transactions. So this will take me to a graph view. And the third view is the table view. In this table view, we will be able to list down all the components along with the respective host. On clicking on individual components like this, it will take us to the corresponding graph view. So this is how the table view looks like. Here you can see all the request throughput, the data throughput, the error count, and all of that. So this is how the service map looks like. So now let's see how to configure alarms, how to get a report in Applications Manager. So to configure alarms, you just have to click on to configure alarms, select the monitor type, select APM Insight. So in APM Insight, so these are the attributes that we can configure an alarm and get an alert for. So you can just select, for example, I want an alarm if my frustrated percentage goes more than 80%. Accordingly, you can just go ahead, click on to associate, select the threshold profile which you have created. We also have an option called as machine learning. You can use any of these threshold profiles and configure the alarms. You can just click on to configure actions at attribute level, where you can just select what type of alert you wanted, whether you want an email or an SMS or a ticket, however you want it, you can go ahead and configure your alarms. So the same procedure for all of the attributes, however you wanted, you can configure. Coming to the reports part, we do have different types of report in Applications Manager. So I'm just selecting reports, I'm selecting application servers, selecting APM Insight, and fetching a report. So let it be any type of reports in Applications Manager. You can fetch the report up to 1 year in Applications Manager. And you can also get the report in PDF or CSV format. So this is the availability report for today. So similarly, you have different types of report. You have an at a glance report of application server. So you can see the report at a glance of all the attributes like this. So you can see the attribute wise report like this. You can also see the health, or you have any attributes specifically you want to monitor them. You can just click on to the attribute and fetch a report either in PDF, CSV, or in Excel format. You also have an option where you can schedule reports in Applications Manager. You don't need to log into App Manager each and every time to check for the reports. Instead, you can go ahead and schedule your reports accordingly. So I'm just clicking here to create a schedule, give a schedule name, select what type of report you wanted, the report period. You can select for which servers you wanted the report for. Once you select these, you will be asked to give the time when you wanted the report to be sent to your email. You can select at which time you wanted the report to be sent to your email and give your email address here. You can generate the report either in PDF or CSV format. So automatically, whatever time you set over here, automatically the report will keep sending to your emails. So this is also one of the options that we have in App Manager. We do have alarm escalation also. So let's take an example. You have a critical alarm for a long period of time. Let's set it like 2 hours. You have a critical alarm. Nobody acknowledges that alarm at all. Accordingly, you can escalate the alarm. You can create your own rules and escalate the alarm however you wish. So this is another one of the option. We do have something called as downtime scheduler in Applications Manager. So let's take an example. Your application is going for a maintenance state. So obviously, it's going to be down and you do not want alert during that specific time because it's going to be down. Accordingly, you can go ahead and set up a downtime scheduler. Like from when to when it's going to be down, what are the applications that's going to be down, you can just select it like this and click on to save, so that during that particular time monitoring will not be done. Once the time resumes, automatically monitoring will start. So this is also one of the feature that we have in App Manager. Also in Applications Manager, we have dashboards. Dashboards are extremely customizable in Applications Manager. You can select whatever widget you wanted to show in a dashboard, create your own graph like a pie chart, line graph, or a bar chart, or create a business view and create a dashboards like this. So this is one of the dashboard that we have created in our demo site. You can customize it however you want it. You also have an option where you can create monitor groups and assign permissions for the users. Let's take an example. If you are a super administrator and you wanted this particular user to have access only to this particular component of the product, accordingly, you can select which user should have which access to which component of the product, select all the monitors, whatever they should access, and create your own monitor group. You also have an option where you can see a business view of your monitor group like this. Let me just show that. So there is one monitor group which is created. selecting business view. So this is how the business view looks like. You can just hover your arrow mouse over there so that you can see what exactly is wrong with these monitors. You can also create subgroups under this and create a monitor group. So this is how the monitor groups looks like. You can also see the performance of the monitors over here. All of these are extremely customizable in App Manager UI. So we have almost come to the end of the session. So let's do a quick recap of whatever we have seen in the presentation till now. So the first we have seen on the configuration of agent-based monitor, like how the agent must be configured on your application server, what are the configuration must be done, all of that we have seen in the first part. Second part, we have seen identifying problematic elements in your application code, like where exactly the issue is happening, whether it's in the database or if it's an application end, what is a stack trace, all these we have seen in the second topic. The third topic, we have seen about the distributed tracing, how one application is linked with another application or how it's linking with the database, all that we have seen in the third part. In the fourth part, we have seen about the thread profiling, the service map. In the service map, the three types of map where we can easily identify the problem, like where exactly the issue is happening. And in the fifth part, we have seen about configuring alarms, reports, dashboards, alarm escalations, downtime scheduler, etc. Thank you once again for staying with me during this course of webinar. We have our demo site, that is demo.appmanager.com, where we have added all the monitors for your reference purpose. So again, if you want a demo or a POC, please do drop an email to eval-apm@manageengine.com. We will be more than happy to take a demo or POC for you. Thank you once again. Have a nice day.